question that people have all the time is, well, even if my bank fails or even if there's a big structural collapse, I mean, there's still FDIC insurance, right, Ann? Okay, so we've got how many dollars are there in demand deposits in the U.S.? It's at least $10 trillion. There's at least $10 trillion in demand deposits in banks in the U.S. That is to say, checking accounts, savings accounts, et cetera, et cetera. A few years ago, right after the 2008 collapse, the FDIC was actually in the hole. It had less than no money, and so it had to collect 3 years' worth of premiums from the banks in advance just to get itself back up to zero and then have a little bit of money to work with. A year ago, the FDIC had roughly $11 billion with a B, $11 billion in funds to backstop bank failures. We're talking about a system where there's over $10 trillion in demand deposits. And, you know, if you've watched my economics presentation on YouTube and I go through how, you know, just the top 5 banks in the U.S. have derivatives exposure north of $225 trillion with a T dollars, and then you start thinking about these things and comparing these numbers, if there's any sort of when this comes apart, let me phrase it like that, when this comes apart, because it will eventually, even if you give the entire system a 90% haircut relative to the risk quantity that's on paper right now, you're still talking about trillions and trillions and trillions of demand deposits that there's no possible way that the FDIC could ever cover. And so the only thing that could be done at that point is for the government to print trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars, which of course has the consequence of further debasing the currency, further driving up the prices of all of these real commodities, and just destroying your life. So
yeah, essentially that's taking the money away from the people who have savings and giving it to those who supposedly were injured by these bank failures. So everybody ends up poorer that way.
Of course, absolutely. So the analogy that you have to make with it in terms of the FDIC is that A, it worked when you had a functioning government with a rule of law that wasn't just pathologically evil and actively looking to destroy the middle class and the economy of the United States. And B, any sort of a quote-unquote insurance program like the FDIC is analogous to the fire department. The fire department works great when one house catches on fire, and they can rush to that house and put the fire out at that one house. If the entire city catches on fire at the same time, then you know what? The fire department is powerless to do anything except stand and watch it burn with everybody else, because there simply isn't enough capacity in the fire department to go and put out an entire city burning to the ground at the same time. That's the situation with the FDIC.